Hey guys, we're working here on the graphing overhaul. We have 6 total graphs, okay? And we have 3 total functions. We have our quadratic, our linear, and our exponential. Okay, so I'm going to pick one of each, just based off the structure, and we're going to talk about these 6 functions. We'll take a look at number 1. Notice where the x is. So we have the x in the exponent. X in the exponent. So that would be exponential. Okay, if you want to take that one on. Number 2, we have an x squared. Okay, whenever we have a squared, think about there's 2 solutions, so it must be a quadratic. Number 2 is one that I'm going to take on. Okay. Number 3, y equals negative 3 over 2x minus 1. Okay, the exponent is 1. We have one solution. That's going to be a linear. I'm going to take that one on. Number 4, x squared again. It's got to be a quadratic. Number 5, just 1/2 x, so it's linear. And then number 6, another exponential that I'm going to take on. Okay, let's start with number 2, the quadratic. X squared plus 5x plus 6. Let's look at the few things we need to do. We'll classify, it's got to be a quadratic because it has an x squared. A y-intercept is always that constant, so we can write that one down, 0, 6. A growth factor. Well, a line has a slope, and a quadratic doesn't necessarily have a constant slope, but a growth factor talks more about exponentials, so there's no growth factor here. Slope, no slope here as well, but it does have x-intercepts and it does have a vertex. Okay, they're either the highest or the lowest point. Well, the x-intercepts, all we gotta do is we have to factor. So what multiplies to 6 and adds to 5? So we have the x squared plus 5x plus 6. Well, the two numbers that do that are 3 and 2. Okay, and I know a lot of people think 6 and 1, but remember it has to add to a positive 5. So it's gonna be x plus 3 and x plus 2. Set them equal to 0, and that gives us x equals negative 3, x equals negative 2. So one x-intercept is at negative 3, 0, and one x-intercept is at negative 2, 0. So if you want to take a second and plot those, you can do that. Negative 2, negative 3. We already have the y-intercept up at positive 6, which is up here. So now you can kind of see the u being formed. But let's find our vertex. Okay, x squared plus 5x plus 6. Now I know we know how to do complete the square, but look at that b value. The formula for complete the square is b over 2 squared. And 5 over 2 is going to give us a fraction. So let's think of our other method. We can use x equals opposite of b over 2a. Okay, so x equals opposite of 5 over 2 times 1. Well, negative 5 over 2 is going to be negative 2.5. So that's the x value of my vertex. And then all you got to do is plug that in. So if I plug that x value in for x, so negative 2.5 squared plus 5 times negative 2.5 plus 6, simplify that. All I did was take this x value right here and plugged it in where I see an x in both my parts. And if you simplify that, you should get a negative 0.25 or negative 1/4. So that y value, sorry, let me rewrite that again, negative 2.5 comma negative 0.25, and then plot that. So negative 2.5 is halfway between negative 2 and 3, and negative 0.25 somewhere right here. Put that all together, and you have this quadratic. Okay, question number 3, a linear. Still doesn't have a growth factor, does have a slope now, but it does not have a highest or lowest point, so there's no vertex. Okay, so classify it's going to be linear. The y-intercept is always that constant at the end, or the b value, because you're thinking m and b. And the slope is negative 3 over 2, which is the m. The x-intercept we might have to solve for. Okay, so negative 1 is right here for the y value. Okay, so we have that y-intercept at negative 1. We have that slope at negative 3 over 2. So let's follow that slope. Down 3 to the right 2 gives me this coordinate. And down 3 to the right 2 gives me this coordinate. And now we can graph this line. Right? Think linear, so it's got to be a line. But I still can't clearly see where is my x-intercept. So when a y-intercept, the x value is 0. When there's an x-intercept, the y value has to be 0. So I'm going to plug 0 in for y, negative 3 over 2x minus 1, and then solve for x. Add 1 to both sides. So I have 1 equals negative 3 over 2x. You could multiply by the reciprocal, which is multiplying by negative 2 over 3, or take this 2 steps at a time. or 2 steps, okay? If it's divided by 2, then let's multiply both sides by 2. So the 2's simplify out, so I get 2 equals negative 3x, because 1 times 2 gives me 2. And then just divide by negative 3. That will always get you the same outcome as if you multiply by the reciprocal. The negative 3 simplify out, and we get negative 2/3 equals x. That's my x-intercept. Negative 2/3, comma 0. And as you can see, that's somewhere right around here where that graph hits. Okay? Last one. Number 6. Exponential, this is what we just took the quiz on, and the reason why you know it's exponential is because the x is in the exponent. Okay, so that's why we got exponential here. Y-intercept always has a y-intercept. Growth factor, now this is the one that does have a growth factor. Okay, a slope, it's not consistent, not like a line, so it does not have a slope. Remember, an x-intercept is on the x-axis, which is right here. But we talked about it. It might get smaller, but it will never reach 0. Or it might get bigger, going to the right, but as you go from the left, those negative numbers, it still never reaches 0. It just gets smaller, okay? So it's not going to have an x-intercept. A vertex means like a high or lowest point, changing from increasing slope to decreasing slope. Still no, that's only quadratic. So we only have 2 things we got to figure out. Okay, the a value, which is that y-intercept, and the b value, which is that growth factor. So our y-intercept is going to be 0, 9. And our growth factor is going to be whatever that number is, 1/3. So plot that growth factor, or that y-intercept, which is way up here. And let's find a few points. Okay, if you want to draw a table, you absolutely can. So you get negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2. Okay, we always put the y-intercept at 0, where x is 0, and then we apply it. So I'm going to multiply by 1/3, which gives me 3. Multiply by 1/3, that's my growth factor, which gives me 1. And then in the inverse, I'm going to divide by 1/3. And dividing by 1/3 is actually by multiplying by 3. Multiplying by 3. So 9 times 3 is 27. 27 times 3 is 81. Those clearly can't be plotted on the graph, so let's just plot 1, 3, and 2, 1. And then plot that exponential. Remember, it never reaches that x-intercept, just gets smaller. Okay, so take a look. A few quick things. A quadratic has a y-intercept, x-intercepts, and a vertex. It's the only one with the vertex, so this is the special one right here for quadratics. A line has a y-intercept and a slope and an x-intercept, the only one with a slope. An exponential has a y-intercept and a growth factor, the only one with a growth factor. But exponential does not have a slope, x-intercept, or vertex. Okay, so please try the other 3, and good luck.